We begin the news now at the hour by telling you that the body of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, arrived at the Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos on its way to Abuja for a state burial ordered by President Bola Tinubu. Senior military officers gathered to honor the late Army Chief as his remains touched down. Lieutenant General Lagbaja, appointed as Chief of Army Staff in June 2023, will be remembered in a service of songs on Thursday evening at the Army headquarters in Abuja. A funeral service is set for Friday morning at the National Christian Center, followed by interment at the National Military Cemetery that afternoon. Now, some members of the Ikonobizi community, Umuahia South local government area of Abia State, southeast Nigeria, are on the run for fear of a reprisal from the military. 2 soldiers were allegedly gunned down on Wednesday by unknown gunmen at the military checkpoint there. Now, since the incident, the military has taken over the scene, barring commuters from using the road. News Central's Chinwe Ogele joins us now from Ikonobizi with an update.
Are yet to pick up in this community. Now, we spoke with some people a while ago who said that the military command also gave the traditional ruler and the leaders of the community 24 hours to provide answers to some questions that they have to answer concerning the incident of yesterday. So currently, vehicles are not going beyond that checkpoint where the soldiers were killed yesterday by some unidentified gunmen. Well, the state government is yet to make any statement concerning the incident of yesterday. I made attempts to reach or to contact the security advisor to the governor, McDonald Oba, but that failed. So hopefully before the end of today, the government will be able to, come out with something. Then the military itself, also the operation, the Southeast Joint Task Force Southeast Operations did issue a statement yesterday, late evening yesterday, where it confirmed that it was just 2 persons that were murdered, by the unidentified gunmen yesterday. So, but as it is now, vehicles continue to get to this point, but then right in front of us, they will make a U-turn and go back to Umuahia to find another route to wherever it is they are going. So presently right now, members of this community, some of them we understand have already run away from the community out of fear. The people have decided to move because they do not know what the military may do in reprisal. So that is the situation from Ikonobizi here in Umuahia South local government.
And still on insecurity, the National Human Rights Commission says between January and September 2024, 1,463 people were killed by non-state actors, while 1,172 Nigerians were abducted. The month of May recorded the highest number of fatalities with 298 deaths, while March saw the highest number of kidnappings, totaling 499. The statistics were presented at a workshop in Abuja organized by the NHRC and the European Union. NHRC Senior Human Rights Advisor Hilary Ogbonna highlighted the rise in human rights abuses, attributing it to the state's failure to protect its citizens. He also noted a disturbing trend of law enforcement officers being targeted, with 7 policemen killed in January alone. Earlier on, we were joined by security expert Augustine Egger to help us understand this trend.
Knowing where we are coming from, but it's very disturbing that we see ourselves going backwards after the nation has been through a lot. Some of the issues I will raise is like everybody, especially those at the highest decision making, should always take intelligence reports quickly and act on it before it escalates. Especially, I'm talking about, I'll start from the terror group that has just emerged, another one that has emerged in Sokoto. Sometimes when the field workers, the ground operation people get this information and escalate it, there's always a delay at the top to designate these organizations as a terror group. so that they can easily reduce their capabilities. But unfortunately, they delay until they grow in their capabilities and begin to attack the poor citizens.
And let's take a short break now, and when we return, experts call for more awareness and inclusivity as World Diabetes Day is marked. We'll be back after this break. And you're welcome back. But just before we head on to the world of politics, let's talk a bit about health. Now, World Diabetes Day is observed on November 14th each year to raise awareness about diabetes, its prevention and also management. It was created by the International Diabetes Federation, IDF, and the World Health Organization. The theme for World Diabetes Day 2024 is breaking barriers, gripping gaps or bridging gaps. Diabetes is a chronic health condition that occurs when the body cannot effectively regulate blood sugar levels. There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 2 diabetes develops when the body becomes resistant to the effects of insulin or when the pancreas does not produce enough insulin. Now, this is often associated with lifestyle factors such as obesity, poor diet, and lack of physical activity. And now to speak more on this and the significance of World Diabetes Day, we're joined by Dr. Blossom Madua-Fokwa, consultant public health physician and PRO, Association of Public Health Physicians in Nigeria, Lagos branch. Dr. Blossom, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, how can we break down societal barriers and stigma surrounding diabetes and also promote a more inclusive, more supportive environment for people who live with that condition?
Okay, great. So some of the ways that we are breaking these barriers is, for example, celebrating a day like World Diabetes Day. And we use a day like this to highlight the causes or the risk factors associated with diabetes, and also to highlight things that people can do to protect themselves or to prevent diabetes. And in addition, we use a day like this to also showcase individuals living with diabetes, basically to show the people, our communities, that there are people that actually live with this disease and are managing the disease quite well. So that way we break down the stigma and also make our message more accessible for everyone.
Okay, so Dr. Blossom, let's also find out the most effective ways to bridge this gap between healthcare providers and also patients in diabetes management, particularly in low-resource settings.
That's a great question. Because in a setting like, for example, like Nigeria, we suffer from poor access to healthcare, particularly for individuals living below the poverty line. And in fact, most Nigerians. So poor access to healthcare is extremely, it's a huge issue that we're trying to combat. So one of the interesting ways that we're trying to bridge this gap is by introducing something called self-care for diabetes. It was introduced by pioneered by the World Health Organization a few years ago. And basically what this means is we teach our patients, our communities, how they can care for themselves so that you don't have to go to the healthcare facility or see your healthcare provider for every single issue. So there are things that individuals that are living with diabetes can do on their own. For example, there's something we call foot care. They can take care of their feet to ensure that they don't have foot complications from diabetes. They can manage their diet. They can monitor their sugar levels, and they can adhere to their medication. So that way, they don't need to see healthcare professionals as frequently as usual. For example, in a country like Nigeria, we're about 1 doctor to 10,000 patients, and that is even in urban areas. In rural areas, the disparity is quite marked. So introducing self-care for diabetes is one of the strategies that we use to ensure that people can actually manage their conditions without having to see a health care provider.
Now, Dr. Blossom, I'm hoping you'll be very summarily in your next response, but I wanted to find out about research. How much attention is being given to research when it comes to diabetes, noting that Nigeria has a large number of individuals who live with this condition?
So there's a lot of research that has gone into diabetes. I mean, let's not even forget that, for example, insulin, one of the medications for diabetes, has been around for over 100 years. So there's a lot of research that has gone into diabetes management. The key question is, how much of the research are we implementing, particularly in our parts of the world where resources are low? So that's one of the key issues that we're trying to deal with. And that's why, particularly in our part of the world, we try to focus on prevention. That is, try to prevent people from even developing diabetes. So things like proper nutrition, things like physical activity. These are things that can help to sort of prevent the onset of diabetes or even delay it. So we focus a lot on prevention because access to management or treatment of diabetes, some of the new things that have come up, particularly in parts of the West, some of these things are not readily available to our communities.
Well, Dr. Blossom, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon to give us very good advice regarding that, and as we commemorate World Diabetes Day. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
You're welcome. And now to the power sector. The federal government is turning to public-private partnerships to help bridge the investment gap in the power sector. Now, this is according to Power Minister Adebayo Adelabu. Adelabu noted that achieving a steady power supply will require $10 billion, an amount the government alone cannot provide. Attacks on power infrastructure, including recent assaults on transmission sites in Kogi and Niger states, have compounded the sector's challenges. Meeting with Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, Director General Dr. Jobson Ewelofo emphasized the role of PPPs in securing both funding and technical expertise to improve power infrastructure over the next decade. The initiative aims to leverage private sector relationships or resources while maintaining government ownership to achieve uninterrupted electricity nationwide. And now, to discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Sam Amadi, the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts and former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Dr. Amadi, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to go straight to it. What are the specific PPP models that the government is considering to attract private sector investment in the power sector?
Well, I don't know what government is considering, but I know that conventionally, I mean, they're not going to reinvent the wheel. So the PPP could be, build, maintain, transfer, build, own, manage. So different model. But the key thing about PPP is, forget the name, it's basically that government would want private sector to participate in some way, usually by providing capital to make investments and then, recover cost plus profit, or government can be asked to manage already established platforms on behalf of government and maybe pay government royalty or share profit. So the primary thing here is that the minister says that they're going to get the private sector involved in PPP. By the way, we've privatized the sector. The major link, Disco, has been privatized, so there's no new PPP in Disco. Those are private entities as of today for all three purposes. Okay, the transmission network is still what is.
Yeah, noting what you said from before, not knowing what the government exactly is going to say, is going to do. However, if they were to go with this initiative, the PPP initiative, what are the risks that they could face?
Well, the risk always. What you don't know, unknown. Basically, saying things like, are you sure that the entity who's coming in has the package financial derivatives and show up as if the entities have financial capacity to deliver? So that's a risk to fact. focus. The second risk is
I'm sorry, Dr. Amadi. Dr. Amadi, we actually lost most of what you said because the network was going on and off. So apologies. If you'd start again, we had asked about the risks that the government might face if they were to go by this initiative. Yes, Dr. Amadi.
The capacity to really manage the network. That's the first risk you run. Are you sure that the person has the capacity to manage the network? Second, are you sure that what you want to, the project you want to do PPP is a project that is crystallized enough and clear and requires private participation? That's the one. The third one is oftentimes it's difficult to know the financial capacity of the firms coming in. And so I think that the government is right to use PPP to drive power sector. But the first thing they have to do is to understand that the private sector works where the public sector is clear and public sector has a strategic commitment and capability to supervise, manage, and know when the private sector is delivering. What we have seen with, whether it's concession or whether it's PPP or whether it's private sector is that oftentimes an incompetent, corrupt public sector uses, outsources these private enterprises or public projects to private entities that they have not done due diligence, number one. Two, they are not able to determine their financial, capabilities to undertake the task, their technical competence, and thirdly, are not capable of effectively monitoring the performance post-professional or post-PPP arrangement. So yes, the power sector is suffering a lot of weak leadership at this moment. In fact, the collapse we have today, or the almost repeated outages, it's not because of lack of finance only. It's also because of weak leadership, weak managerial capabilities. And that's where I think that the minister talking about 10 billion to have 24/7 power is a distraction.
All right, Dr. Amadi. All right, Dr. Amadi, from what you've said, a public structure with an infallible, public sector with an infallible structure and a private sector that is capable financially. However, let's talk about the recent developments when it comes to power infrastructure. There's been plenty of vandalism going on. So the question is, what can the government do regarding these vandalisms that have been experienced in the past 1 month?
I think first is that, look, you have to diagnose what is causing this crisis. And for me, three things are clear. Yes, we have low investment in the sector. So most of our networks need to be rehabilitated. And that's where looking for private finance makes sense. But to attract those kind of finance, you have to be a country that shows you're serious with their policy. And there's no serious investors going to come to Nigeria today if the rule of law framework is still poor. Nigeria scores very low, about 34 out of 45 countries in Africa in assessment of rule of law index. So again, we're not going to be very attractive to real players. The second is that you have to look at the managerial component. Like I said, some of these failures, outages, are sort of negligence, weak management at the level of TCN, at the level of the ministry. So I think that what is so evident is that the president needs to change the team. They need to improve the quality of leadership. Again, this is also what will help you attract investment. Many of the real players would like to see some degree of improvement in the policy side, in the managerial side, that you have reduced their losses, that their sector is a little bit stable, then they will come in to expand capability. So I think at this stage, really, the short-term work should be to optimize efficiency through retooling management strategy, looking at changing the team that is not performing, and also thinking more around the way we force the discos and their owners to make improvement in managerial change management. And in the medium to long term, we're thinking around redesigning the sector. With the new Electricity Act, we should now think around decentralization. Okay. The states are already creating new laws on the Electricity Act, but creating state electricity market. But we're not seeing that, rigorous, well-considered, process in which we will decentralize the sector in a way that states can collaborate around regions, Southwest, for example, South, Southeast, North. So with that level of regional integration instead of centralization, you begin to see a more manageable grid, and you begin to isolate failure so that you don't have to have national outage. If some areas are failing, then other areas can improve. So I think we need a lot more rigorous thinking on policy, on managerial structure and technical efficiency, and then hope that we can get more investors to expand in the medium to long term. But the short term is failure of leadership and poor managerial skills.
All right, then. Dr. Amadi, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on the news. Thank you, sir. Welcome back. Now, the Ondo State gubernatorial elections are just around the corner, scheduled for November 16th, 2024. This highly anticipated contest has 17 political parties vying for the top spot. News Central's Igbalani Omoni dives into the strengths of the major contenders and what history reveals about the state's elections. His report.
The forthcoming governorship election in Ondo State is a pivotal moment in the state history. It marks the first time that major candidates in an election hail from the same senatorial district, Ondo South. 17 political parties have nominated candidates for the election. The list includes the incumbent governor, Lucky Aiyedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress APC, former Deputy Governor Agbola Ajayi of the main opposition People's Democratic Party PDP, and 15 others. Historically, Ondo State has been a battleground for the two major parties in Nigeria. The election is predicted to be a two-horse race between Aiyedatiwa of the APC and Ajayi of the PDP, both former deputies to the late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu. The two frontline candidates have crisscrossed the 18 local government areas of the state, presenting their manifestos to voters.
As it is in Ondo State now, my brother is running an illegal system.
Let me first of all talk about his. Somebody who has about 3 different dates of birth on a secondary school certificate.
Since 1999, no political party has ruled the state for more than 8 years. The APC seeks to affirm its strength by winning another 4 years after 8 years in power.
I mentioned it here.
Both had strained relationships with their late boss and survived several impeachment attempts. As the incumbent who controls all local, state and federal elective positions, Aiyedatiwa has a formidable structure that can swing the contest in his favor. A major concern raised by the main opposition party is the potential misuse of incumbency, with issues such as restrictions of access to venues and intimidation of the opposition by state security forces, among others. Both candidates face unique challenges heading into Saturday's election. For instance, the emergence of Olugbenga Edema, the NNPP candidate who hails from Ilaje local government area, same as the governor, and defected from the ruling party after alleging irregularities in its primaries, has generated substantial support, particularly from disaffected members and allies of the late Governor Akeredolu, which could cause disruptions. The PDP has been grappling with a wave of defections following its primaries where Ajayi emerged as the candidate. The outcome has sparked discontent among many party members, leading to high-profile defections to the APC.
I joined because it is time to push for progress in Ondo Kingdom.
And because the leadership is open, that is why every other party is collapsing into APC.
With the election around the corner, pundits are studying the body language of Akeredolu political dynasty and wondering where they will pitch their tent. Though the Akeredolus are members of the ruling APC, they have been at loggerheads with Governor Aiyedatiwa before and after he succeeded the late governor. Pundits are also watching the camp of the former Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, 7 in the current APC administration, to see who the group will support. Currently, campaigns are in full gear as various parties canvass for support.
The governorship election for November 16, 2024. The votes will be given to my party, APC.
Our people are resolute, they are ready, the combat ready to vote out APC.
Labour Party is the most popular political party in Ondo State.
The Independent National Electoral Commission reports that no political party nominated a female candidate, while one candidate nominated by the African Democratic Congress is paraplegic. Several factors will determine the winner of the forthcoming election. The PDP's hope on winning the election hinges on the dissatisfaction of the general populace based on the reforms of President Bola Tinubu from the ruling APC. It is believed that Aida Towe's performance or achievements in the last 10 months will determine if he will get the people's vote on Saturday. The outcome, however, is far from certain, as voters may surprise pundits with their choices. In Lagos for News Central, I am Igbalani Omoni.
And in the meantime, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has disqualified Olusola Egbeseni as the Labour Party's candidate for the 16 November 2024 Ondo State governorship election. A three-judge panel unanimously ruled in favor of an appeal brought by the Labour Party overturning a previous Federal High Court's decision that recognized Egbeseni and Ezekiel Awude as the party's candidates. Justice Hama Barka, delivering the lead judgment, confirmed the disqualification. This follows the ruling by Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court, who had upheld the validity of the Labour Party's second primary election, which had previously nominated Egbeseni and Awude. Earlier, Monday, Mawa, a legal practitioner and a member of the Labour Party, spoke to us on this development.
Now, election is just a few days, it's on Saturday from here, that's 3 days away. So today is Thursday, Thursday is already gone, let's say 2 days away. And the people are now getting to know again now that, oh, it's no longer the candidate they were talking about before, that is now Olorunfemi, who they initially knew was supposed to be the candidate. Now, within the period of 3 days to election, we are now going to be trying to sell to the election, the voters of Ondo State to say, well, Olorunfemi that we were thinking had been removed before is now the candidate. That is a confusion in itself that we have created. Just because some persons just want to have their way at all costs, notwithstanding the provision of the law. So it's unfortunate. It's going to affect our party and the chances of our party in Ondo State negatively. Ayodele Olorunfemi Festus is the candidate of the Labour Party for the gubernatorial election in Ondo State coming up on the 16th of this month.
We now head to Edo, where Governor Monday Okpebholo has ordered the immediate freezing of all state-owned accounts in commercial banks, demanding strict compliance from financial institutions and government agencies. Governor Okpebholo issued a strong warning that any civil servant or agency head who disregards the directive will face serious consequences. This action is part of an ongoing investigation with future steps to be announced. Additionally, the governor has reverted the Ministry of Roads and Bridges to the Ministry of Works, criticizing the former name as a holdover from Godwin Obaseki's administration, which he claims did not build any significant infrastructure. Relevant agencies have been instructed to implement the changes immediately. And in the meantime, reactions have been trailing Monday Okpebholo's inaugural address following his swearing in as the new governor of Edo State. His speech emphasized economic reform, foreign investment, security, employment opportunities for unemployed youth, and infrastructure development, among other policy statements aimed at bringing stability and growth to Edo State. News Central's Austin Azu, who spoke to a cross-section of respondents in Benin City, the Edo State capital, reports that they urged the governor to prioritize addressing the state's infrastructural deficits rather than engaging in a blame game on his first day in office.
Well, it looks as if they have been nursing some anger, and it was an opportunity to vent it. The issue of unsworn judiciary members who should have been High Court judges, the issue of members of the House of Assembly who were not sworn in. Maybe that's not the real place, let's face it, to throw up such things. It just shows you're coming from a kind of background.
To me, I don't see any new thing coming out from what the governor just said yesterday. He said he wants to probe the activities surrounding the lawmakers that were not inaugurated. This thing has happened how many years ago? The government doesn't need this. It's a waste of time. To me, it's a waste of time.
Welcome back again. Now the news continues in West Africa, where Senegal's legislative election is just days away, with voters heading to the polls on Sunday, November 17. Senegalese voters will elect a new parliament this weekend, with President Bassirou Diomaye Faye's government aiming to gain the power needed to advance promised reforms. Political analyst Mbaye Thiam has examined the key issues surrounding the election, particularly the ruling party's bid to secure a parliamentary majority. The president, who won 54% of votes in March, has pledged economic transformation, social justice and anti-corruption measures, raising hopes, especially among the youth. However, alongside Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, Faye has faced challenges including slow economic growth, high inflation, rising unemployment and youth migration to Europe. To gain a stronger mandate, the president cleared the way for snap elections by dissolving the opposition-led assembly in September.
Sur le plan politique, remporter les élections législatives leur donneront toutes les cartes, l'exécutif et le législatif, pour pouvoir mettre en œuvre ce qu'ils appellent le programme de rupture électorale. Les Sénégalais savent voter. Et en général, il est rare qu'ils élisent un président de la République et le dépouillent de l'outil qui lui permet de mener son projet. Le temps n'est pas suffisant pour créer une distanciation entre l'électorat qui a élu Diomaye Faye et l'électorat qui s'apprête à élire une majorité parlementaire. Je pense.
Now, the main negotiator for the COP29 chair said that Azerbaijan's doors are still open after France's environmental ministry declined to attend the UN climate meeting due to unacceptable comments made by President Ilham Aliyev. Aliyev had accused France of crimes and human rights violations in overseas territories, including New Caledonia in the South Pacific, where 13 people have been killed this year in protests that broke out in May over a contested voting reform. And now let's cross over to Azerbaijan, venue of this year's COP29, where our correspondent Bettina Mweli is standing by for the latest updates. Hello, Bettina. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So what new information do you have for us today as regards COP29?
I come bearing good news as the Director General of the National Council for Climate Change, Nkiruka Madueke, had briefed us earlier, telling us that Nigeria will be signing an MOU with the Chinese government tomorrow. Now, we do not have knowledge of how much this MOU will be or what the contents of the MOU will be, but we do know it will be happening tomorrow, and I'll be sure to make sure that I bring it up to speed for News Central. But apart from that, we've also had different events. Earlier on, we had an event where some organization are trying to enhance air quality around Africa. Now, this same organization are people that also try to monitor the air quality in Lagos State. And if we are bringing it home to Lagos State, we do know that we are dealing with a lot of waste in Lagos, and that also affects the air quality. So that conversation is also ongoing currently at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan.
All right then, Bettina. Well, thank you very much. We're going to circle back to you in our subsequent bulletins for more from COP29. Thank you once again, Bettina. Now, outside the African continent, thousands of police are being deployed in Paris to ensure security at Thursday's France-Israel Football International, in which Maccabi Tel Aviv fans came under attack. Paris Police Chief Florent Nunez says 400 officers will be on patrol. 2,500, or rather 4,000 officers will be in patrol, and 2,500 at the Stade de France in the northern Paris suburbs, and the rest of public transport and inside the capital. In addition, around 1,600 private security guards will be on duty at the stadium, and an elite anti-terrorist police unit will protect the visiting Israeli squad. The UEFA Nations League match is under intense scrutiny following the violence after last Thursday's match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv in the Netherlands. And now for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good afternoon. Please, Afia, can you tell us why this match is under so much scrutiny?
Last week, we had this match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv, and that took place in Amsterdam. And there was running pitch battles, I think it could only be described, between two sets of people. These were fans of both sides, or so-called fans of both sides, and a lot of people who just joined in for the violence. Pro-Israel supporters, pro-Palestine supporters. There was violence on both sides of the divide there. Nearly 70 arrests were made after that violence took place in Amsterdam. It affected trams and shops. A lot was going on. And now you have Israel playing France in this international friendly at the Stade de France, in the capacity stadium of 80,000 people will only be a quarter full, because there is worries that will be returned to that violence that was seen on the streets just last week, just a week ago now. Only 100 Israeli fans are expected to travel to Paris, although there may be other supporters of Israel, and not just the football team, that's of the country, who of course we know is waging this war in Gaza at the moment. And we know that that is being used as an excuse for people to protest rightly, whether they're pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, but also for people who are involved in football violence across Europe to get involved.
What has been the reaction, however, with all this security being implemented when it comes to the UEFA Champions League match? What are the reactions from people?
Well, supporters are somewhat perturbed by it, but I have been told that they should expect identity checks when they turn up to the match today. And the Stade de France has seen a dangerous breakdown in law and order before, right? UEFA's Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid. And so they are used to having this kind of security in place. Now, France's far left party, the Unbowed, they side with the Palestinians and the Lebanese in this conflict with Israel. They have called for the match to be cancelled, or said that President Macron should not attend. The president, however, has said he's determined that this match should go ahead, and he will be in attendance. And it's, you know, people are saying on the side of Israel that they shouldn't be, you know, forced into not playing. This match should not even be held behind closed doors because of the potential threats of violence. But you have people on the other side saying, look, Russia waged a war against Ukraine, have been banned pretty much from international sport. Why is Israel still allowed to go forward, take part in international sport, when some people say they are committing genocide against the Palestinians? So there has been a huge reaction to the fact that this match is even going ahead in the first place. Like I said, it's not behind closed doors, but there will be a really reduced audience. Only 20,000 people will be in attendance.
Afia, the anti-Semitic references or reactions have been very, very loud lately. So is it safe to say that Europe is seeing a return to anti-Semitism?
What I think Europe is seeing is protest. Europe is seeing protests across all sides, whether that's pro-Palestinian, whether that's pro-Israeli, because of what's happening in the war in Gaza. There is some anti-Semitism happening, absolutely. There is some anti-Muslim sentiment happening, absolutely, as well. And also, we have to talk about hooliganism, football hooliganism, which is rife across Europe. And people are jumping on the bandwagon of the Israel-Gaza war to forward their agenda of football hooliganism. That's what I think we are seeing at play at this moment.
Well, Afia, I want to say thank you very much for joining us on the news this afternoon. Thank you. Right, back in sports, Super Eagles interim coach Osine Guavon has said the team is positive going into the clash against Cheetahs of Benin Republic. Speaking in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, the adopted home of the Benin Republic, the former international said the players are already getting set for the game, with only one player, Sidi Kumar, still being expected. In the same vein, captain of the Super Eagles, Williams Truts Ekong, revealed that the team is already familiar with the star Felix Houphouët-Boigny, the facility where they upended the aspirations of Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon and Angola at the 34th Africa Cup of Nations finals in Côte d'Ivoire earlier this year. Matches between both countries in recent times has been keenly contested. The Cheetahs and Super Eagles have met twice this year. Gernot Rohr's team men defeated Nigeria 2-1 in 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, while the Super Eagles thrashed the Cheetahs 3-0 at home in October for the first leg of the AFCON qualifiers.
Against Benin was in October, if I'm correct, and we won at home. We know Benin is a good team. Gernot Rohr has been my coach with the national team previously for over 5 years. Like the coach said, he knows the team very well. I've played against Benin several times.
That's all on the news this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories that we brought your way. Remains of former Chief of Army Staff Taoreed Lagbaja arrive Lagos en route to Abuja. Governor Monday Okpebholo orders freezing of all state-owned bank accounts pending conclusion of investigations. And Senegalese new leaders eye majority in parliamentary polls. Now, do remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.